And we're back. So what we did yesterday was the construction portion for these guys. These are our dollar store armor pieces. If you want to check that out, I'm not going to review. Just go ahead and go back and take a look. So what we've got is our, what I'm calling the paladin or the anime bracer. And it's pretty. And yesterday I realized that you guys couldn't really see all that. So check it out. It's nice and pretty and shiny and silver. And if we compare it to the darker hammered metal finish, you can see that it's a whole different kind of feel. And this is cool and all, but what I want to do today is we're going to do some separate videos. I'm going to do some weathering and antiquing and stuff on this one. And that's going to be one video, and then I'm going to do a different video for each of the different finishes. So we're going to do a grimy finish on this one. And the first thing we're going to do is get out our materials. Okay, so what we're going to do to our paladin / anime bracers here is we're going to do a wash. And the way we're going to do that is with some watered down acrylic paint. And we're going to grime it up. And then we're going to wipe some of it off. It's a technique that's referred to as antiquing, and again, I learned how to do it from Alan Hops at Stiltbeast Studios. I highly recommend you go check out his stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off, the kind of grime that I want to do for these bracers is going to be different from the stuff that I'm going to do for all the other bracers. These guys I want to have kind of an acidic kind of dark greenish gunk on them, and the way we're going to do that is with a mix of 3 colors. I'm going to start out with a little bit of black, and this is super cheap craft paint. This one was $2.99 for a bottle this size, and this will last a long time. The metallic that we're going to need later is a little bit more expensive. This was, I think, $1.39 for a small one. The metallics tend to be more expensive, but they're worth it. And again, you're not going to be using much of these. To start off with, all I'm going to need is some rags and a sponge, and I'm going to need an applicator sponge, which I keep right about here, and you can see he's well used. So this is my applicator sponge, and I'm going to want to get him nice and wet. And I'm going to go get some water, and I'm going to use a chip brush later. And these chip brushes are basically kind of like throwaway. Wait, I've actually got one already. I've got a recently used one right here, and these things are basically disposable. I think you can get like 20 of them for a couple bucks at Harbor Freight. They're great. So this is as close to a true downward angle, so you guys can actually see what I'm doing as I can get. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to mix up the paint on the palette. So I'm going to move these guys out of the way. And here's my dollar store palette. I'm going to do... Oop, that's not full of water. I need a different squirty. Here we go. I highly recommend that you do something like this. I got my sponge. And I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here on my palette. And here we go. I'm going to take a little bit of the black. Right about there. And the black goes a really, really long way. Anytime you add black to something, I highly recommend you use little amounts and then gradually work your way up until you're as dark as you want it. Because it's kind of like... It's kind of like doing carpentry. You always want to over measure and then trim down, whereas with black paint you always want to use less than you think you need and then move up to get darker, because you can't really get undarker without messing up your color. I'm going to add acrylic green for some nice ugly yuck, and I'm going to do a little bit of blue on this one as well to give it kind of I think the blue will go well with the silver color on here too, so we're going to mix all that together. And a touch of blue. Alright, so now I take a mixing brush, which will be this guy, because he's all kind of crusty and used. And I'm going to get him wet, like so. And now I'm just going to mix these colors all together. like so. Get them all nice and mixed together. And it's always going to look darker than it's going to come out on your item. So it's always going to end up lighter on the item than you think it is. Alright, nice and mixed. Nice and mixed, like so. Okay, I'm going to leave that on there. And now I'm going to get my sponge nice and wet. Sponge, 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 sponge. I'm going to take it and I'm going to dip it into my thing of water here. There we go. And what you want is a watery mix. You don't want it to be paint-like. You want it to be very wet. Because here's how we do this. I'm going to take my sponge, I'm going to dip it in the water, and now I'm going to mess up that nice pretty finish. I'm going to just glob this stuff all over the thing. I'm going to get it in all the recesses and cracks and crevices and crannies, like so. I'm going to do all of this fun stuff. I want to get it all over the place. I want to get it all up in that business. And especially in all these cool detail pieces up here. Because what this is going to simulate is years of wear and tear and use and that kind of thing. And then I'm going to let it set for about 15-20 seconds. Can you guys see that? Yeah, you sure can. Okay, cool. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back with a trusty old shop rag, just a piece of white cotton. You can probably use old t-shirts if you want. I'm sure lots of people do. I just had to happen to have a package of these. And I'm going to dab off some, but not all, of that grime. Like so. Don't want to take it all off. In fact, I don't even want to take most off. What I want to do is leave a significant amount of it on the item, like so. Okay? So I can get this a little bit better light here. There we go. Alright, so you can see that it's still got all that nasty grime and grit on it and stuff. And it looks pretty awful, doesn't it? And we're going to do this twice for each piece. So I'm going to do that to the other one, and then I'm going to come back and do it to this one again and get another layer of grime on it, but I'm going to use a different color mix. Okay, I adjusted the light a little bit here so that you can see how this looks a little better. You can see all the dark grit and grime and stuff that's now down in all the crevices and on the armor itself, and that's exactly what we want. You can also see that I've got a couple weird spots, like right here where there should be a bunch of grime, but there isn't. I'm not going to go back and do another pass with the same color, but what I am going to do is make sure that when I do my next color, all that stuff gets covered and filled in. Alright, so for this pass I'm going to do a color that's much more rust-like, but I'm also going to do way less of it. I'm going to do it in a couple specific patches, and that's going to be about it. I'm going to give the black and green some visual interest with another color added onto it, and then that's going to be a wrap before we go back for our dry brushing. Just wanted to mention something about the sponges that I'm using. These were actually the sponges that we used to use upstairs for dishwashing, and they're perfect once they get to the point where they're kind of worn down and beaten down, where they're not really all that helpful for dishes anymore. You can bring them to your shop and you can use them for stuff like this. I cut them in half and I use them for this purpose. So onto our color mix. I'm going to go with some darker brown, or that's more of a medium brown really. Go with a medium brown and some orange. It's a really bright orange, wow, okay. And maybe some yellow. Brown, orange, maybe some yellow, a little bit of yellow. Let's see what that turns into. I may need to darken that in a bit. Alright, so I got this red. I'm gonna go splotch, 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 splotch. Yeah, that's about good. And then I get my wiping rag. And, oh, wait. I want to get down into that little crevice in there. There we go. Get down into that corner. Like so. And really, I want to get down into that corner. There we go. Into that corner. Alright, now we got that. And now we just go bloop, 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 bloop. And take it off. You can see that only leaves a little bit behind, and that's exactly what we want. And then we do it again. I want to make sure I don't get it in the same spots as I did on the last one. Get this one down on the knuckles maybe. And get some action right there. Actually, just do that whole section right there. And some along the back corner here. There we go. So I'm gonna okay. And now we take it off again. Okay, so I've got my really nice, weathered, grody, nasty pieces, and if I wanted to, I could leave them just like this, especially if I was doing something for a monster who had maybe captured these items or something like that. That's what I would do, is I would leave them all grody and nasty. But what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to do something called dry brushing. And I'm going to take my silver metallic paint, and I'm going to take a small brush. I was originally going to use the big chip brush, and I decided against that because what I want to do instead is be able to control exactly where my bristles are going. So I'm going to take a smaller brush, and I'm going to take a piece of painter's tape. So what I'm going to do instead is take a small brush and a piece of painter's tape, like so. Actually, that one right there should work just fine. And I'm going to take this about halfway up on the bristles, and I'm going to collapse the brush just a little bit. And that's going to give me more fine control over where my bristles go. And you'll see why that's important in just a second. So I'm going to take my paint, and I'm not going to use much because this is dry brushing and I don't need to. I'm going to take my silver paint, put my silver paint on the platter, and then I'm going to get the bristles, just the tip, and get some paint just on the tip of the bristles. And then I'm going to spread it out until there's just barely any on the bristles themselves, like so. And then I'm going to take this and I'm going to start hitting the high spots. I'm going to start with this big nub in the middle, and I'm going to hit him with some silver, and I'm going to start hitting the other big edges with some silver. And what this does is it highlights all the high points on the piece. I want to be careful not to have too much. It's better to do a whole bunch of passes than it is to glob it on and muck it up. And what this does is it picks out the details that we've got. It picks out my little rivets, it picks out my shield, it picks out the edges, it picks out that nice knob in the middle there. When I get down here at the knuckles, you're going to be able to see it do that there too. What it also does is it tones down a lot of that wear and grit and grime that we put on there, and it makes it look a little more heroic and a little less, well, nasty. What you end up with is this pretty guy instead of the super shiny one that we had before. And I could go on and do some more highlighting. I could add some white to the silver and do a second coat of the dry brush highlight if I want. But I think this is pretty good for what I'm looking for. And what I'm going to do is hit this with 2 clear coats of matte finish and call that a wrap. Cool. So this is another finish that we're going to be doing. This is the dark hammered metal. And what I'm going to be doing to it is giving it a couple kind of yellowish orange rusty patches on it, and then doing another dry brush. So let's see what we got here. Got some orange, I got some, yeah. Alright, so I got some orange. Smidge of yellow, and maybe a smidge of red, just a hint. Got my color. I'm gonna dab a damp sponge, and then I'm gonna go to town. I'm gonna get down in all the dark recesses and really just kind of give this thing a coat of grime. Now I'm leaving this one a little shinier than the last one because I don't have as far to go to get it to look worn and old, because this one didn't start off nearly as bright and shiny as the one did for our paladin. So I'm just going to hit it with that, and I'm actually not going to take any off of this one. I'm just going to leave it be. I'm going to sponge it till it's a little even, and then let it sit. I'm going to do it again. Do it again with this one. Wait, no. So what I'm going to do actually is go back to my first one and give him some more intense splotches of rust. And again, I'm just going to leave these in place because I like the pattern that the sponge gives. Like so. Down in that little crack there. Yes, perfect. And a little crevice there. And around the knuckles. I know all that's going to get the silver wash later. Okay. Okay, so we've got our dark hammered bracers. And what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to do the same thing as I did before, but I'm going to do less of it because it's going to be more intense. Now, so I've got my brush, I've got my dry brush palette, and I'm going to be careful with where I'm doing the dry brushing on this one because it's going to show up more on the dark metal background than it did on the light metal background. Like this. See how that suddenly got shiny? I'm going to do that with just about everything. Like so. And by just kind of waving the brush tip across it with just a little bit of paint on it, what it's going to do is pick up the detail around the edge, around all these little rivets, but it's going to leave the majority of my rust and my weathering intact. And it's going to leave it intact in such a way that it looks like it's down in the crevices and down in the areas where, say, a squire just couldn't be bothered. So we go like this. Make sure I got make sure I get the knuckles real good because it's going to be the most forward-facing part. There we go. And now what you've got is a nice, weathered, slightly rusty bracer. Ta-da! Like so. Okay, so with this set of dark bracers, we're going to go with something a little bit more extreme, and we're going to go with kind of a, well, the goal will be to go with kind of an acidic, acid nastiness kind of feel. And I've got these bubbles down here that I deliberately left on because a little bit later I'm going to hit these with some pretty intensely colored paint to make them feel more acidic and disgusting. So I've got green, yellow, and brown here, and I'm going to do my first pass of the back weathering. Here we go. And remember, this is my first initial weathering pass, so this is basically just me knocking down the super, super brightness of the shiny. That's kind of awesome. I like the way that looks. And I'm going to make sure that I get up here real good. Alright. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my green again. Actually, I'm going to get a different shade of green. And I'm going to go glorp, like so. Actually, I'm going to go more than that. Glorp. I'm going to go with my yellow. I think that'll work. I'm going to go with my green and my yellow, and I'm going to mix these guys together. And you'll notice I'm not using any additional water this time until the very end. I want to make sure I get my color mixed real good, like so. Get it off of my mixing brush as much as possible, and I get this really nice, yucky green. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to take that same sponge is damp, and I'm going to damp it to where I get a little bit of paint, just paint, not paint and water. And now I'm going to go back and I'm really going to mess this thing up. I'm going to make it look kind of disgusting. Like so. I'm going to make sure I get the area up front here. And there we go. I'll leave that, and I'm going to make sure that this gets the sponge texture all the way through it. That way I don't have any weird like streaks or anything like that. And on this one, what I'm going to do is pretty much the same thing. Okay, so I've got my bright yellowish green here, and what I'm going to do is give myself a little corner on the sponge here, and I'm going to be very careful with where I put this stuff, and I'm only going to put it in the spaces where I've already got the other green. So I'm doing it in the middle of where I've got that other green already, and I'm basically layering this in the middle of that for additional yuck, basically. And then up here on the knuckle, like that. Okay. Like so, and then I'm going to hit this real hard with it too. All this glubby, yucky nastiness. Up here, right there. Yeah, that's good stuff right there. And keep in mind that most of this is going to disappear when I dry brush it. So now we're going to do the dry brushing just like we did on all the rest of those. Got my silver metallic, a little glob of that. Got my dry brush. Like so. You want to dry brush a little heavier with this level of finish on it than you would with the others that we've done, because the heavier finish is gonna have more difficulty getting through. So I'm packing a little more paint on the brush than I have on the previous options. As you can see that it makes a big difference. Makes it look way less cartoony. Now when I get right here, I want to be careful, because what I'm not wanting to do, I don't want to dry brush my knobbly parts. All I want to do is dry brush the metal. There we go. That's pretty doggone awesome right there. Alright, so these are the dark iron ones, and this is super quick and easy. These have got the truck bed liner finish on them already. You might be able to see it a little better now. It's all kind of weird and grainy. All I'm going to do to these guys is I'm going to hit them with a silver dry brush, just like I have pretty much everything else, but I'm not going to do anything else to it, because as soon as I hit it with the silver dry brush, all those details come popping out. Like that. I go from having a really boring, flat piece of armor to something that has some real history and character to it in no time flat. Just make sure you hit the edges real good. Make sure you hit all your relevant details. In this case, I want to make sure all the rivets and all the different lines and stuff get good. Like so. And suddenly, you've got an instant wrought iron bracer. Ta-da! And last but certainly not least, we've got our bronze ones here. These are the ones that we had with the brown base coat last night, and we gave them a dusting of the hammered gold to give them kind of a dark, bronzy kind of look. And now we're going to just completely change everything about these guys. These are going to be kind of cool, but what we want to do, or what I want to do, is something a little bit different. So we're going to take the green and yellow that we had earlier, and we're going to kick that up. And a lighter blue, a turquoisey kind of color, and a little bit of black. Very little bit of black to darken it up. Like so. And now I'm going to do the wash like I've done with everything else. Same as before, but a different effect, because at this point what I'm trying to do is cover up all the bronze. I'm trying to completely knock down, I'm not trying to obliterate it, but I'm trying to knock it down completely so that we can have this nice corroded bronze look. I want to make sure I get in all the cracks and crevices. lay it on thick, like so. And then just like that first one, I'm going to go back and I'm going to just dab some off. I'm not going to wipe, because if I wipe, I get weird wiping marks. But then, I've got that guy. Kabam. Okay, so now I've got these guys that are suitably base coated, for lack of a better term. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of move all this stuff over to one side, and I'm going to squeeze this out into a different rag, like so. Actually, since you can't see that, like so, I'm just going to squeeze it into a different rag. Make sure it doesn't drip on my stuff already. Okay. And now I'm going to mix up a new batch of color. I'm going to use basically the same colors this time. I'm going to go green and a little more green. Green, blue, but instead of black, I'm going to go with white this time for a more kind of oxidized top layer kind of feel. And I'm not going to wet it down nearly as much. It's going to be thicker. I want it to be thicker because this is going to be more globby. And then I'm going to go glob, 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 glob. Load up my sponge with some paint. And then I'm going to go glob like so. And I'm not going to do this one all over the place like I did on the last pass. I am going to make sure that I get the paint into all the cracks and crevices where I do put it, like so. And then I'm gonna do some on this corner here. Yeah. Make sure I get down in all the cracks and crevices, and then I come back and I take some off, just like so. Like that. Alright, so that last coat is dry, and what I'm going to do now is go back for one last coat. I'm going to do it in some small select areas, but this is going to get us some really heavy corrosion. I'm going to really hit that corner. And you notice I'm doing less area each time so that the different layers can show through. And my rag. Make sure that I'm using the nice mottled edge part of the rag, like so. And then like that. Take some of that off, and take some off of the corner. I want to knock this one down a little bit more. There we go. That's better. Okay. And now I'm going to do it again to this one. Like this. I think what I'm going to do is come back and take the paint off immediately. Yeah. Like that. And then right across the knuckles here. Right across the knuckles. That. Doop, doop, doop. Like so.